I have heard you speak before about the first time you kind of really grasped psychology was
Mm,
when you were working with Beth Phoenix. I mean, does
yeah.
Beth stand out as your favorite opponent from your career, or was there anyone else that you felt like you had really unrivaled chemistry with or that you loved to work with?
Beth was my ultimate favorite opponent because we both wanted to make a great match and we would do anything to show up for that, showing up early, talking with the agents, characters, and our dynamic just made a great storyline. She was obviously, the stronger glamazon professional wrestler where I was completely the underdog. And it brought out my strong suits. My strong suits is selling for other people,
Mm,
making them look good. And when I make my opponent look good, it makes me look good.
yeah,
And with her, it's kind of almost easy to sell, her giving me a big whack on the back because she's a lot bigger than me,
yeah,
So obviously, I know what to do when somebody does that, when they're the same size, you're kind of like, ah, I don't know, and so just the dynamics between the two of us, and what we wanted to do, she was coming back from a broken jaw. And she kind of thought, her career was kind of over. Like she debuted, had this incredible debut, and then got smacked in the face and had a broken jaw, and she was sidelined. So for her coming back, like she was really motivated, and so was I. And so the dynamics and the timing of everything was really amazing.
I'm glad you said the word underdog because I've kind of got that in my notes to ask you about because I think that's a really key part of your career actually. You really
Yeah.
played that underdog role, masterfully. And I think that's something that's then kind of come through in the work you've done afterwards about be a champ, this kind of overcome adversity and whatever cards you're dealt with in life to rise above as an underdog.
Yeah.
Is that something that you kind of intentionally brought into the wrestling business? Is that something that was always in the back of your mind, this idea of being an underdog in life?
I think it's just always been part of my personality of, if I want something, I'm going to get something. And one of the things I pride myself on is I can't tell you anything in my life that I've wanted that I have not gotten.
Mm.
And that's why I think I'm a great coach because you only don't get what you want if you give up. That's the truth of it. I mean, it doesn't matter if you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, a wrestler, a champion, a mother, a father, whatever you want to be. It's how far are you willing to go to get it, And so I've always kind of been the underdog with anything that I've wanted, and knowing that as long as I don't give up, I can achieve that. And so that's been some of my greatest success stories are when people think you can't do it. It just motivates me even more to say, okay, now I really want to do it.
I mean, you had a beautiful conversation a few years back on Lillian Garcia's
Oh,
Chasing Glory show. Obviously, you and Lillian very close friends. I mean,
yeah.
that stands out to me still as one of the most moving kind of podcasts I've ever
Mhm.
listened to in terms of an episode, not just in wrestling, but in general. I mean, you really opened up in that. And for anyone who hasn't kind of heard more of your story, because I remember listening to this and being really drawn to this. Um, I mean, you went through a lot of adversity. I mean, in terms of your upbringing, um, it's not my story to tell, but you lost your dad very young. You were also, a bit of a miracle baby, really.
Yeah.
So can you tell me a bit about kind of, I guess, the early years of your life and how that shaped you into who you are today?
Yeah. So my dad, I think he was vaccine injured from the army, but he developed a tumor in his spine. And there's a really long name for it. I have it printed out, but when he developed this tumor in his spine, he became a quadplegic. And so he was actually paralyzed from his neck down. And to just think my mom had to take care of him like this and also was working 2 to 3 jobs just to provide. I had an older sister. My sister is 7 years older than I am. So when my dad was a quadplegic, nothing from the neck down worked except for his special wand. And no pun intended. And so his dying wish was to be intimate with my mom one more time. And my mom was committed to him, till death do us part. And so she obliged in that. And she got pregnant. And it was a time in their lives, from what I've been told, is that, the doctors were advising her not to have me because my dad had this serious condition and they didn't know at the time if this would be transferable to the baby.
Mm.
And so my mom was contemplating that, but my dad, I think, from what I heard, was slightly verbally abusive, not wanting to kill his baby.
Mhm.
And he won that fight with my mom, and thankfully she had me, and I was born without any of that condition. It's something I have in the back of my mind to just, be cautious of and, any symptoms of that. But so far, I haven't had anything like that. I actually find it really ironic that I married a chiropractor.
Yeah. Yeah.
They always say you marry somebody that like represents your dad or looks like your dad, or, and my husband is actually ironically um so connected to my birth dad, who I didn't know because he passed when I was about 2 years old. And then I had a stepdad for several years of my life, and his name ironically is Ken, and they have the same smile. Like I look at them like this is so wild. I married both of my dads. And so it's been a beautiful story to kind of overcome the odds, and really just that's how I started my life, and even though I was a young baby, because I'm so tapped in spiritually, like it's really kind of I was an underdog from the get-go, you
Yeah.
know and so it's just been a part of my personality since birth.
And how did that impact your relationship with your mum growing up? Because obviously you've lost your dad at a very young age.
Yeah, me and my mom had an incredible relationship. My grandparents did do a lot of the raising me because she worked 2 to 3 jobs. But she was so present. I never felt like I was lacking or without. I think one of the things that I realized, maybe this was from Lillian's podcast, is the only thing I lacked was more time with my mom, but the circumstances wasn't like, it wasn't that she wasn't present. It was that she was just doing her best to raise 2 young women. And the things that she did for us, it's incredible.
Mm.
Um, she put us through Christian schools as a single mom. Like you think like, how is that possible? And when you are a mom, and I have 3 little girls now, you just respect that so much more. Gosh, you're making me cry, Ben.
Sorry, sorry. But it is. I mean, you must see so much for, as you say, you've got your three daughters now, and you know how busy life is, and you know how as parents we are pulled in a million and one directions, and you're doing what you're doing with your husband right by your side and being very involved. You can only imagine how hard that must have been for your mum to give you that upbringing on her own.
Totally. And so, she was my best friend. She was my mom, but she was also my best friend. So when I lost her, it was hard. Um, and it put me back into being that underdog, right? It's like, okay, I didn't really, my stepdad and her had divorced right before that. So it was like, there's something about having parents, whether you're close to them or not, and I was very close to my mom, is you always know that you can fall back on them.
Hmm.
You just always know that. Like there's this unconditional love there that even if you're a little bit of an asshole or whatever you are in life,
Yeah,
it's like mom and dad will try their best to show up for you,
yeah.
right? And so when you lose that, you're kind of like floating in outer space, like, wow, I don't have that stability anymore. Even though my mom didn't have a lot, I know she would help me or find a way. Like she instilled that in me in my life. And at that moment, when I started to create, my champion programs, I learned we have to learn to fall forward.
Mm,
And a lot of times you might land right on your face, but at least you fell forward, right? And so
yeah.
the whole concept of falling back for me, it's not even. in my mindset. You know, there's no falling back, there's no plan B, there's no alternative. But with that, it has came with great success because I'm always willing to try, I'm always willing to fail, and I'm always just going to fall forward because falling back is not an option anymore.
It's amazing the kind of unconditional love of parents because I don't think you get it until you are a parent yourself. I used to think like, how are my parents putting up with me with all of my kind of teenage mood swings and how I used to treat them? But then I have kids myself, and there's nothing that your kids can do or say that stops you loving them.
Yeah.
You might dislike them at times. There might be
Yeah.
moments when they're not your favorite people. You want a bit of space, but there's nothing that can stop you loving your kids. And
Yeah.
how old were you when your mum passed away?
Let's see, it's 22 years ago. I think I was right around maybe 23, 25. Gosh, I'd have to do the math. I'm not so good at keeping track of that. But really young to lose my mom and just kind of in that stages of just trying to make it on my own, you know? So it was really a devastating time for me. Although I believe to this day, like she's gotten so much more close to me. Like I do believe that winning that championship, like her energy and her guidance from up above, like just made me so much stronger than I think I would have been on my own without her being up there. And so just having that part of her with me, I think definitely helped me win that championship.